Welcome back to Donington Park, everybody. Ready to get racing back underway here on the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit under much brighter skies than we had a couple of hours ago for our last Sports 2000 Championship race action for the historic class. It's now the turn of the Duratecs to head to the circuit for the final time this weekend, and the final time indeed in 2023. The cars make their way out of the assembly area onto the green flag lap, after which they'll line up on the grid ahead of 20 minutes of racing to round out their 2023 campaign. It's been a very entertaining season of racing. Michael Gibbons has very much been the form man, and he continues that in qualifying, well, in fact, in qualifying and in the first race yesterday. His win yesterday giving him pole for race 2 alongside David Horton. Joshua Law will start from third. He had an entertaining race yesterday after a stall on the start line. Tim Tudor starts fourth ahead of Richard Johnson and Ashley Law on the third row. Then it's Colin Peach and Tom Stoughton, row 4. Row 5 for James Barwell and Andy Chittenden. Those two had an entertaining battle in the first race of the weekend as well. They will complete the top 10 on the grid just ahead of Steve O and Peter Williams on the 6th row together. Row 7 there before Joshua Needham and Clive Hayes, Roger Donnan and David Gorster next. Then it's John Owen ahead of John Eiley on the 9th row with Paul Traherne hopefully lining up at the back of the 19-car grid. So Michael Gibbons, by my reckoning, has done enough to wrap up the overall championship now and the championship within Class A. Colin Peach, I think, was already the champion in Class B coming into the weekend, whilst Paul Traherne was gunning for the Derek Bell Championship honours, not helped by the fact that he non-finished yesterday, but John Owen was only third in class. He's his nearest rival in the championship, so I think... sorry, Peter Williams, excuse me, is his nearest rival in the championship. Did get a class win, actually, so... very quick mathematics. I reckon that might still be alive, but Traherne probably just needs to finish the race today, and he should be the Derek Bell class champion. Andy McEwen and Piers Pryor here once again to enjoy the racing from the Duratec class, and yesterday's race, Piers, Michael Gibbons rather dominated, but we said at the time it could have been a very different story had Josh Law not had that appalling start. Very lucky to avoid getting rear-ended by someone actually on the line, fell to the back, recovered nicely to third. He'll be gunning for better though in this one, won't he?
It was a great drive from Law after you mentioned he stalled from pole position. He'll hope to not make the same mistake twice. As you mentioned, it was a very good job that the rest of the field managed to be heads up and miss him, because that could have been a nasty accident. But we got away with it, and he managed to claw his way back through the field with a great drive, which gave us some action to talk about. Hopefully we'll have some more of the same today. It was a good race overall. These cars always looking good, looking racy, and I'm hoping for some close racing. Wind's picked up a little bit compared to yesterday, slight change of direction which will make the cars handle slightly differently, so potentially look out for a couple of mistakes on that one. And
these cars much more aero dependent than the historics that we saw out a bit earlier on, so that wind could cause a few dramas. We talk about headwinds and tailwinds quite a lot, Piers, but I'd imagine up at the top of the circuit, particularly through McLean's and Coppice, that crosswind can really unsettle a car quite easily.
Yeah, there'll be a tailwind going, or headwind going through McLean's, which will turn into a tailwind going through Coppice, so that definitely affects the balance, because when you have a tailwind, takes a bit of air off the rear wing, and, or say air off the rear wing, it's not technically correct, but it feels like you have less rear grip, so it can be a bit tail happy through Coppice, which is a long corner, and we know that we've seen some overtaking there in yesterday's race, and probably will do again today. We're just probably waiting for that, I think, that low loader to remove the car from the previous session, and then we'll be green flag at the back, ready to go racing for the second time this weekend.
Yes, we are. 20 minutes on the clock then. The final race of the season in the Duratec Championship for the Sports 2000s about to burst into life. Away they go. Josh Law's made a better start this time. Still not that rapid off the line. What a start it was, though, from Tim Tudor in the yellow number 40 car. Moves up to challenge David Horton for second place and might even have a stab at getting the race lead. I think he'll have to slot into P2. Runs a bit wide, though, does Tudor, so Horton comes straight back at him up the inside line. All of this going on behind Michael Gibbons, though, who leads them down through the Craner curves for the opening lap. Second place for Horton, third for Tudor, and Josh Law just about, I think, managing to assert himself in fourth place, but for the second day in a row, not the best of starts for the number 1 car.
Yeah, much better today than yesterday, but still not an ideal start, going from third to fifth almost immediately, although we just saw he clawed his way back up into fourth and is ducking up the inside for third. No, not quite this time into McLean's.
No, Tim Tudor had that one covered, but Josh Law once again giving himself some work to do, and he struggled to get past Tim Tudor for a while in yesterday's race as well, actually. That arguably cost him a shot at chasing down David Horton for second position, so want to try and dispatch the number 40 car a little bit more quickly today. He's in the slipstream, heading down the back straight, but a cement dust down there from an earlier session, and Josh Law does well to avoid that, goes in on that inside line. That's not the distraction you want going into a part of the circuit, Piers, where you have to be absolutely pinpoint accurate with your turning points.
Oh, it's so tricky when you start a new session and there's some cement dust down, because sometimes it can be absolutely no different to the normal racing surface, and other times you can put a wheel on it and skate straight on. So these drivers are being a little bit careful. Saw some of the fields deciding to go inside it. Luckily, it kind of straddles the racing line, so you can kind of straddle it on the racing line, but then when you turn in, you might just get that bit of kick of oversteer as you traverse over the cement dust, which is covering up some oil from the previous session. But everyone through the first lap cleanly as far as we can see.
Indeed so. So Gibbons then with the lead, Johnson second, Tudor third. So actually it's not Horton second, my apologies. That's actually Richard Johnson from fifth on the grid into second place. He made a really good start, whilst Horton did the opposite. He went from second back to fifth on the run through the first couple of corners. There the battle for third though. Tim Tudor under threat from Josh Law, who does not want to spend any longer than he has to staring at the rear wing of the number 40 car. Up the hill they go through McLean's. Is there a gap on the inside? No, there isn't. You can see that they're beginning to detach now from the top two ever so slightly. Frustration this for Josh Law, who will believe, I'm sure, that he's got the pace to win this race, but it's not easy when you get toward the front of the field. It's not easy to simply drive past other drivers. Tim Tudor himself, a very successful racer within the Sports 2000 Championship over a number of years, and he's not going to want to give this third place away without a fight. They turn through the Fogarty S's. Good exit from here is important, and a good exit Tim Tudor gets. Yeah,
Joshua Law, as you mentioned, will be thinking, I want to get past Tudor as quickly as possible, because his pace yesterday was pretty comparable in clear air with our eventual leader Gibbons, but he needs to get with him to have a chance of challenging for the top step, because otherwise that gap is just going to grow and grow.
Was Ashley Law making a move at the inside. Further back, I believe, I think Tom Stoughton losing 6th place as a result of that. The leaders come out of the final turn. The lead gap was just a fraction under 0.8 of a second. It goes up to 1.3 seconds at the end of lap number 2, with the fastest lap, as you'd expect, from the race leader Michael Gibbons. What can Josh Law do about Tim Tudor? Just a fraction too far back. So tempting, isn't it, to make that lunge to the inside, but you've got to be close enough, because actually sometimes the inside line at Redgate isn't the fastest way through the corner.
Certainly not. I think Law in the green car, we're looking at number 1 there, just had a quick look into turn 1, thought better of it, because he wants to make a clean move and not lose too much time, because as much as he is stuck behind Tudor at the moment, pace isn't terrible, so he's thinking, right, I need to just pick a move where I can get through cleanly without risking contact after what was a difficult race yesterday, and then hopefully pull away pretty cleanly. A good place to do that would be into the Melbourne hairpin, for example, and he'll be setting up hopefully for a good exit out of here, Coppice, to get close through the Fogarty chicane, potentially putting Tudor offline on the entry of the chicane, so he can get a good exit and hopefully get alongside even before the braking point begins for the Melbourne hairpin.
Tucks into the slipstream, closing all the time on Tim Tudor, and then really good on the brakes, Josh Law. Now he's definitely closer than he was a lap ago, gets maybe a slightly better exit from the chicane than he did a lap ago, but Tim Tudor didn't make any mistakes either. Down towards that all-important braking zone at the Melbourne hairpin, Tudor a slightly later turning point, ultimately not late enough to leave the door open for Josh Law, so positions stay as they are. Climbing up the hill now then, Gibbons leading overall. Within Class B, sorry, by the way, it is Colin Peach who leads, as he did yesterday, by just over a second at the moment from the number 25 car of Joshua Needham. So that's the top 2 within the Class B runners, and the Derek Bell class, led by Paul Traherne, who was a lap on retirement yesterday. It's good to see that his race is going a little bit better already. Out of Redgate goes this scrap for third position, and are they maybe starting to inch towards Johnson in second? I think they are.
Yeah, just slightly. Seems like Tudor has a slight straight line speed advantage over Law right behind him, because Law can get close to the corners, as is demonstrated quite vividly there through the old hairpin, but then down the straights he can't seem to make use of the slipstream. Potentially slightly different aerodynamic balances chosen there. If you run slightly left rear wing, for example, left rear wing angle, you'll cut through the air a bit nicer, and again also the ride height, I'm sure, ever so slightly to give yourself a bit of a speed advantage, and a different setup might be the difference between these two cars at the moment. But I think it is a matter of time before Josh Law makes his way through into third place, and hopefully, or in his eyes, will then start to chase down Johnson in second.
Yeah, because Johnson is not far ahead, and they're lapping quicker again than him, I think, on this lap slightly. So Tudor maybe a bit of a mistake there at the chicane, went in a bit too deep, and so Josh Law now definitely within striking range, heading into the Melbourne hairpin, looks to the inside line, commits to the move, late on the brakes, textbook, well, no, not quite, snatches a brake, runs out wide, and Tim Tudor gets him straight back again.
Don't know what textbook you're reading, Andy, because that's not ideal, unfortunately. It was easily done into that corner there. It's a downhill braking area. Oh, we're getting an overlap into the last corner. Goddard's as well, so they're going to be probably side by side. No, not quite. Getting the run was Joshua Law out the last corner, but yeah, he locked up slightly going in up the inside of the Melbourne hairpin. So easy to do, and a good awareness from Tudor in third. As we're now having a look at the inside of turn 1 as well. Luckily, room being given by Tudor. Are they going to go side by side down the training cards? It looks so.
Yeah, this time I think Josh Law's probably got the move made, has he? Tudor will try and hang on round the outside, but ultimately there's nothing that he can do. Josh Law then does finally get through into third position. Took him half a lap, but he did get there in the end. And now he will set off after Richard Johnson ahead of him. Johnson was about 1.2 seconds clear of these two at the start of the lap. That will likely have gone out slightly in the first sector. So actually, this is Josh Law not losing a huge amount of time with that side-by-side battling, and he will now certainly have his sights set on second place. Some good battling going on a bit further back here. Look, bit of a defensive move made there, and is that going to lead to an overtake? Nearly it did. That was Ashley Law and Tom Stoughton. So Ashley Law up into 6th position and not wanting to give it away.
Good. That was, I think, the trick of the camera angle there, but I thought the aggressive turn in from the 73 of is it Andrew Law? Yes. Ash Law, sorry. Yeah, I thought it was going to come to blows as we see him look up the inside into the Fogarty S's. Not quite getting that done. That'll be Peach on Barwell trying to get that move done. Not quite this time.
Yes, so Colin Peach there, the orange car, leading in the Colin Peach, excuse me, I think I said Peach then, leading in Class B, and he's about to gain a place overall because Barwell locks up again down at the Melbourne hairpin, and that opens the door for Peach to go through. And again, downhill approach into Melbourne, that makes it difficult enough to get the car stopped. Add in a bit of a tailwind, not a huge surprise to me to see a few people getting it wrong down there.
Yeah, it's so easily done, so easily done. You're braking so hard. If you haven't got the brake bias set perfectly, then it's easy to snatch a front wheel or get a bit of rear chatter into there, which can make you run wide, as we just saw. And a look up the inside of Redgate, not quite getting alongside before the apex. That is the number 71. Is that Trey Hurd now trying to make up a move on Barwell after Barwell's fallen back into his area? I lost my train of thought.
I think we knew what you meant, Piers. Paul Traherne having a pretty good race, actually, from the back of the grid. Obviously, he didn't get beyond the end of the first lap yesterday. Good to see him running well and into the top 10, and might be about to gain another position as Barwell starts to struggle maybe for pace. Yeah,
just looking at Joshua Law, now he's been released from Tudor. He was fast on the last lap, only a tenth slower than our leader, but a good second, 6 tenths faster than second place. Oh, carry on.
That's Traherne having a big look at the inside of Barwell, and Barwell again slamming the door in his face but managing to hang on to the place.
Yeah, just looking back at that now, Joshua Law is at the personal overall best first sector and a pretty good middle sector as well, so definitely closing down on Johnson in second. But we're looking at this battle now for the lower end of the top 10 between Barwell and Barwell and Traherne.
Yes, we are. 9th place they're fighting for. They're both in different classes, but that doesn't really matter. Big lock-up from Colin Peach up the road as well, the place at which he actually benefited from the same mistake from Barwell a lap ago. Now, this for second place. Joshua Law on the tail of Richard Johnson into Redgate corner, looks up the inside. I'm not going to call it textbook until he's made the move stick, which he does. That was much more like it.
That was textbook, that was textbook. Get a slipstream, pull out, get an overlap, brake, get it stopped to the apex, don't allow the cut back, use all the road on the exit to pull away. And I think it's now going to be basically a straight lap time shootout between Gibbons and Law to see who can get overall honours. It's going to be hard for Law to close that gap based on their very close pace, considering the gap is now 4.9, probably 5 seconds, I would imagine, after that overtake between Law in second and Gibbons in first.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? He might be fractionally quicker than Gibbons on the odd lap, but the starting point being the best part of 5 seconds means that under half the race to go, it's going to be a tall order this for Joshua Law, but he's going to throw everything at it, I'm sure. Final race of the season, might as well have a go. And let's see what his middle sector is. For Gibbons a 36.3 and for Law a 36.3. So yeah, pretty evenly matched through the middle part of the lap. We'll see over the next couple of laps whether Joshua Law can start bridging that gap. Further behind, meanwhile, Tom Stoughton still stuck behind Ashley Law in the number 73 car. This is the fight for sixth position overall, 6th place within Class A as well, and Stoughton with a good exit from the chicane there, Piers.
Yeah, and defending into Melbourne hairpin, you can see that he's having to go narrow to stop the overtake from the inside, but that's going to leave him vulnerable on the exit. Can he get an overlap before the final corner? Not quite. Goddard's the last corner, and unlike the Melbourne hairpin, you can't really throw it up the inside from a couple of car lengths back because the braking zone is much shorter, you're not travelling quite as fast, and also with it kind of being a crest on the way in, you turn in quite early to the corner to try and get onto the curb or near the curb before the track drops away and drops off camber. It's actually quite aggressively downhill to that corner, and more so than it looks on the cameras. If anyone at home or any of you watching have ever stood anywhere near the final corner, it drops down quite considerably, and because the corner's off camber and dropping down. Oh, we've got a spin, 103.
That is David Gorst down at the Melbourne hairpin again. Easy place to get it wrong. No damage done though, manages to carry on his way. So yeah, those final two corners, Piers, they look like the simplest corners on the track in many ways, but it's funny that is always the place where people seem to make mistakes.
Very much so, and it's one of those where you look at a track map and you think it's two standard hairpins, but it's a prime example of why undulation that we have plenty of here at Donington Park really gives the circuit character, because what look like two almost identical hairpins, one right and then one left, are actually completely different corners. The speed you arrive at them, the braking zones, you brake downhill for the Melbourne hairpin, then it flattens out at the apex and you're uphill on the exit. Then Goddard's you brake uphill and then turn in as soon as it goes downhill, then you're off camber and going down and down and down, almost like a helter-skelter, and then it tries to wash you wide on the exit. So you drive them very, very differently, but this battle continues. It
does indeed. Ashley Law, having cleared Stoughton earlier on, I seem to remember, now really struggling to defend his 6th position. 7.5 minutes or so to go. Up the hill we go into Goddard. Such a wide bit of racetrack on the way in as well. That can tempt you sometimes into making that lunge, but Stoughton decides not to go for it this time.
Yeah, it's also one of those corners that is quite funny, because as you're driving in the car, especially as low as these Sports 2000s, you just have circuit and then sky, so trying to pick your braking point and turning point is much more difficult than a lot of other places, like for example Redgate we're just looking at now.
Indeed so. Down towards Melbourne hairpin comes another little scrap going on further back. That is the battle for 17th, I believe, this one. John Owen in the number 28 car, he runs within the Derek Bell class, and then number 34 is Roger Donnan. He's one of the Class B runners, right in behind him down through Goddard's corner. Out onto the pit straight, and Owen not using all of the track there, not running anywhere near the exit curb, and still managing to get the power down nicely, straightens the car up early, carries good speed down the pit straight, and then sort of wanders towards the middle of the road, turning into Redgate. Again, not using all of the road on the exit, so not the traditional racing line, but it's working for him.
Yeah, he's clearly got the pace over Donnan at the moment. Just having a quick look back at the timing screens, and Joshua Law in 2nd place is charging or trying to charge down our leader by setting the fastest lap, that last lap of 33.330, but that was only 300ths faster than our leader, and that's not going to be enough to catch him, because I think he's going to need at least half a second a lap between now and the end of the race to even have a chance at a victory on outright pace.
As we've seen with a few races, it's only our second race, but as we saw in the historic race earlier on, the lap time's about 0.3 of a second away from what they were doing yesterday, so the track maybe not quite as fast this morning as it was yesterday afternoon. Down to Redgate corner comes Richard Johnson, and he is now in danger of losing his 3rd position to Tim Tudor. Tim Tudor has been catching him over the last few laps. On the previous lap, he was another 10th quicker, and he's now got that gap down to under a second. David Horton is the next car behind there in 5th position, so 3rd, 4th and 5th all in the same picture. And Tim Tudor running out of time. He's only got about a quarter of the race to go, but what do you think? Has he got the pace to get back onto the podium?
Tim Tudor's is chipping away at that gap. He mentioned the last lap only a 10th faster. That wouldn't be enough in normal conditions, but he's just on that threshold where if he gets another 10th or 2 further up, he'll just then be in the slipstream, which then should drag him up to the back, or at least within a couple of tenths of Johnson in 3rd place, because in these cars where you've got probably more grip than you have power comparatively, the slipstream is very powerful, but with these cars a little bit of aerodynamics, I think once you get right underneath someone's rear wing you might lose a bit of front grip, so the toe kind of helps you up to the back of someone and then hinders you getting past them, so it's one of the unique characteristics of this type of car. But yeah, I think the gap has definitely come down more than a 10th this lap by the looks of it visually.
I think you're right. We'll see what it's like through the final sector. Up towards the final corner they're about to go then. 4 minutes and 20 seconds left in this Sports 2000 Championship. The Duratec season coming to a close here at Donington Park. Once again, we thank Apsley House Capital PLC for their sponsorship of the live stream so that we can bring you the live coverage of the championship finale. And hopefully we'll have their support again through 2024. And, well, has this 2023 season got one more surprise in store for us? Another good lap there from Josh Law in second position, 3/10 quicker than the leader, but that's still not enough. 4.4 seconds the gap. 3 minutes 45 left on the clock, so only a couple of laps to go, and Josh Law, I think, is going to have to settle for second place. And really, it was that time that he lost in the early stages, stuck behind Tim Tudor. If he'd have made a good start, got into second place maybe into turn one, I think he might have had an answer for Michael Gibbons, but just didn't get off the line well enough, and then it's taken him too long to get into this position.
Yeah, it would have been close, I reckon. In the lap times, they're trading times at the moment. I mean, Law is probably lapping about, well, that last lap was about 3/10 faster. So he's chipping away at the gap. It's now 4, at the start of this lap was 4.42 seconds, whereas I think it was up to nearly 6 at one point, wasn't it? So he's chipping away at it, but not going to be enough with only another couple of laps remaining now. It might be 3 laps. 2 laps remaining after this.
Yeah, I think you're right. Josh Law did just do a purple middle sector though, 4/10 quicker than the race leader, so he's not giving in, that's for sure. Keeps on pushing, and maybe if he can get within a second or so, Michael Gibbons might make a mistake. You never do know. Back to one of the scraps going on further back. This is actually for the Class B lead, so Colin Peach had this big advantage over Joshua Needham earlier on, and all of a sudden that advantage has been eradicated. So Needham closing in on the previous lap. 9/10 quicker, and straight on goes Traherne. That's Paul Traherne down at the Melbourne hairpin. Go on, keep it going, keep it going. Nope, the car's stuck in the gravel. It is a long way off the road, so I'm hoping we won't need a safety car, although Colin Peach might be quite grateful for one, because with 2.5 minutes to go, he's got some defending to do.
He has got some defending to do, having to go defensive into the final corner with Traherne right underneath, not Traherne, Needham right underneath his rear wing through there. Not quite close enough to mount an attack, although feeling the need to go defensive into turn 1. He's going to be looking for a cutback. Is Needham. Oh, we get wide at the turn 1 on the exit. That is going to hurt his exit. Are we going to see an overlap? We are going side by side down the Craner curves. Watch out. No contact, please, guys. Still side by side. I think the car on the inside is going to have the edge. Or are they?
Oh, brilliant driving. Needham round the outside. Full commitment. Interesting interpretation of track limits, but he does go through ahead of clearly a struggling Colin Peach. So Needham there, Joshua Needham, to the lead of Class B. Just a quick thought on Paul Traherne, by the way. That takes him out of the lead of the Derek Bell class. It means that now Peter Williams is leading that class. Traherne's on course for a double non-finish. Williams, remember, was second in the championship, so we'll have to try and double check after the race what that means for the Derek Bell Championship, but what looked at the start of the weekend like a real outside chance for Peter Williams to claim the title might suddenly have started to be a bit more realistic. Oh, they're both off!
They must be oil down. That must be an issue potentially for the car. Was it Traherne that went off?
Yeah.
Traherne went off. Potentially he had an issue, and that's good driving to let the car in front head on. Are we going to see more issues potentially? No, not that time. I don't know what type of... It's strange. You very rarely see 2 cars follow each other off the road. So that would suggest there's some sort of fluid or something on the road down there that caught them both out.
What I hope doesn't happen is that Joshua Needham gets in trouble for overtaking under a yellow flag, though, because there was a yellow flag on the exit of the chicane. He was waved through into the class lead by Colin Peach. I just hope it happened before the yellow flag zone. That's one for the clerk of the course to decide. It would be an unfortunate way to lose a class victory, that's for sure.
Hopefully common sense prevails there, because it was clearly a one driver letting another through as opposed to an overtake, and it was done safely. And then someone else has come to strife. That's the number something 6.
It's Stoughton, I think. 26, he's not come through, so there must be something on the track. Now that car's in a very precarious place.
Oh, that is right on, that's right on the apex of the Fogarty S's, so that is, I'm almost certain if that car can't be removed, we'll be ending the race this lap around with double wave yellows through there, and it's going to hand the victory, which probably would have been anyway, to number 76 in shot now. That is Gibbons.
Luckily, the time's ticked to 0 anyway. This is the final lap of the race, and Michael Gibbons, who's lost quite a chunk of time over the last couple of laps, understandably, I think he's decided to back things off with everything going on in that final sector, but it doesn't matter. He comes out of Goddard's and he weaves in celebration as the final final race of the season in the Sports 2000 Duratec Championship goes the way of Michael Gibbons. Joshua Law has to settle for second place. The eventual winning margin was exactly 3.3 seconds. Then Richard Johnson in third position, fourth Tim Tudor, and it will be David Horton who'll be a bit disappointed, I think, with fifth place, having started on the front row. Then Ashley Law, and there goes, oh, that's Needham off again. Peach, they both go wide, presumably on that oil down at the Melbourne hairpin.
Yeah.
But that is another lead change within the class, and Colin Peach has managed to wriggle his way through with a corner and a half to go. Colin Peach is going to get the victory by the looks of it in Class B. Further back, we will keep an eye on what's going on in the Derek Bell class as well, but there goes Colin Peach. I mean, he nearly went off the road as well, but he does manage to keep it between the white lines and claims the class victory after a thrilling battle there with Joshua Needham. Good to see the two of them congratulating each other on what was a very entertaining scrap. Waiting now for Peter Williams to get to the line in the lead of the Derek Bell class. He hasn't yet got here, and with that oil down in the final sector, I'm certainly not going to call him as the class winner until I'm absolutely sure that he's come through. The only other Derek Bell runner, though, was Roger Donnan, so he should be okay. There goes the 88 car, as Peter Williams does get 2 class victories within the Derek Bell class. Whether that's enough for the championship, we'll have to wait and see. Head over to the Sports 2000 social media pages if you want an update on that after the races. I'm sure many of you watching along at home already follow them on Facebook and Instagram and all of those things, but they will have updates, I'm sure, on who has claimed the class championships after the event. But Piers, lots to talk about there. Another exciting race.
Yeah, sort of the race settled down, but then the oil at the end made a bit of dramatic, and here is the provisional results.
Yes, with Michael Gibbons at the top, 3.3 seconds clear of Josh Law in second place. Third place then went the way of Rob Johnson. Fourth for Tim Tudor, and fifth for David Horton. Sixth position then was Ashley Law, ahead of Colin Peach, who got past Joshua Needham again right at the end. Multiple tradings of the lead there between those two within Class B, with Peach getting the victory in the end. Seventh overall ahead of Needham. Then it was James Barwell ninth, 10th place for Steve O, and then outside of the top 10 it was 11th place for Andy Chittenden, 12th John Eiley, 13th place, and the win once again within the Derek Bell class goes to Peter Williams. Then it was 14th position for the number 15 of Hayes, followed by Owen, Donnan and Gorst, who was a lap down. Tom Stoughton we saw spinning off, we think, on that fluid down at the chicane, and Paul Traherne, who we think left the fluid at the chicane, retiring into the gravel from the lead of the Derek Bell class with a couple of laps to go. Well, that is it for the Sports 2000 Championship. A big thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And once again, a big thanks to Apsley House Capital PLC for sponsoring the live stream here this weekend. Myself and Piers have both really enjoyed covering the races, and hopefully we'll be back for more of the same in 2024.